We want truly passive income, meaning no shoes, no shirt, no problem, meaning what? 10, 20, 30, 40,000 a month, whatever it is for you and your family and your lifestyle, like figuring out a laser, what is that number? And then reverse engineering and putting all of your time and your energy into that one thing.
Welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where it's our goal to take your income, your investments, and your life to the next level. I'm your host, Chris Larson. If you haven't yet, get a copy of our book for free at our website, nextlevelincome.com. That's www.nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link, and I'll even send you a copy if you put your address in. On today's podcast, we welcome back Brett Swarts. Brett is the best-selling author of Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. He's the host of the Build It to Billions and Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. His insights have been featured at the Best Ever Real Estate Conference, DLP Capital Conference, American Entrepreneur with Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, and also seen on Fox Business Network. As a real estate broker, his expertise is one of the few in the world who has closed Deferred Sales Trust, Delaware Statutory Trust, and 1031 exchanges. And we're going to talk about the differences of those today. Brett is the founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions, where he teaches purpose-driven entrepreneurs and investors to build their capital gains tax exit plan to multiply their freedom, wealth, and most importantly, their impact. He's closed over $500 million in transactions, and he was the first to help Bitcoin owners exit millions in gains and defer their capital gains tax using a DST. We're going to talk about all those things on today's podcast. Brett, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Chris, so grateful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You are coming back on the show. I think this is your third time. So very esteemed group here as we cross over 250 episodes going into our 7th year of the podcast. And we have you back on, Brett, because you always provide so much value and you provide some expertise on some areas that a lot of investors aren't really aware of. So we're going to cover a lot of that today. Before we get started, share a little bit more about you, what you're doing with Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Did I get that right?
Yep. Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, real estate investor, in broker by trade, and kind of probably like a lot of your listeners, trying to find ways to multiply freedom and impact with wealth and with business and real estate and investing. So I'm on this journey with everyone, I think, or at least a lot of us probably listening, to scale, from 0 to a million or millions to billions. So we can give more, all of it away is kind of our focus right now, and looking at things beyond just the building of wealth, but the building of impact. Yes. So we do that in a number of ways with capital gains tax deferral solutions. We do that with building passive income plans, like what you guys do for clients. And so all of this is kind of the ecosystem of what we're doing today.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And we just had a podcast talking about generational wealth, because a lot of our listeners, a lot of investors in today's world are coming into money. They've worked hard as doctors or entrepreneurs or professionals, whether that's, a lawyer or some other type of professional. And, they've made this money. They've learned about alternative investments like the ultra wealthy. And one of the things that I love what you help investors do, Brett, is you help investors not only preserve their capital and multiply their capital, but also help teach the next generation about that. And today we're going to talk about your framework, talking about family, mission, vision, and values, which I know you personally live through. So outline that for the audience.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, and even when I started my real estate investing career and brokerage career, it was so focused on the financials and the underwriting and the cash on cash returns, or even just the traditional rich dad, poor dad book, right? Try to get on the right side of the quadrant, replace your time and your energy and the expense with passive income coming in. And that's all very, very important. But what we found as we've continued in this journey with clients, with these big, massive, huge capital gains tax exits that are happening with their businesses, real estate, Bitcoin, that they want more than that, and or they're not quite sure where this ship is going if they don't first have a solid foundation of what we call a family, mission, vision, values. And that right there helps to, kind of get the compass in a clear north, if you know what I mean, like kind of get you pointed where, and it helps clarify a lot of things that can maybe get in the way. And so, we're focused these days on helping our clients to do that as a part of what we provide with the tactical tax deferral and the passive real estate, typically income plans. Honestly, I didn't really have the awareness of it until I had a chance to spend some time with a gentleman named David Green, who's the founder of Hobby Lobby, and
Yeah.
has literally given billions away
Hmm.
to help the most vulnerable people and help the causes he believes in. And I spent time with David, and I just it was interesting to see how he defined stewardship, and how he defined giving, and how he defined impact, and how he practically put these things together. And his attorney, his gentleman is named Bill High, and they wrote a book together called Giving It All Away, and I really recommend it. And at the center of that, I spent some time with Bill as well at a couple day workshop. And the essence of it was we get so focused on like the living trust, like pass it, probate free, or so focused on even what we do, the deferred sales trust and deferred
Yeah.
capital gains tax, or the 1031 exchange, or all these different vehicles. But the one that's most important, the core, that Bill found and David found, is the family mission, vision, values. And from there, that is actually kind of the centerpiece to build the other things out on. And so we can dive into what that looks like in our family, and kind of give you some examples, and maybe ask some thoughtful questions for the listeners to get them thinking too.
Yeah, that'd be great. Before we jump into that, I want to do a quick recap. And I know there's been a lot of people that have, a lot of listeners have probably seen you before and heard about the Deferred Sales Trust, but our audience is always growing here. You mentioned a 1031 exchange. If you would talk about what a 1031 exchange is and how a Deferred Sales Trust is different than a 1031.
Yeah, so a 1031 exchange is a continuity plan where you're selling investment real estate and you're rolling it or trading it into investment real estate. That's
Yeah.
the simple way to think about it. And the reason you do that is to be able to defer the capital gains tax and compound your wealth. It's a great way to
Yeah.
build your wealth when the deal you're buying makes sense. Like you would have bought it anyways, and you happen to be selling something at hopefully a good price, and you have a good
Yeah.
gain, and you get the tax flow, debt flow, and cash flow work. So all of the stars align. And it used to be, I think, much easier when even just a decade ago. I think it's even
Yeah.
more competitive these days to find deals that make a lot of sense with where interest rates are at.
Yeah.
But if you can find it, they're great. So that's a 1031 exchange. It doesn't work for a business, doesn't work for a Bitcoin, doesn't work for stock or a primary home. And so where we come in, we offer something called a deferred sales trust, which is not a 1031 exchange. And in fact, it eliminates the need for the 1031 exchange. You have none of the like kind replacement requirements. It works for any asset of any kind. So business, Bitcoin, stock, real estate of any kind. And when you sell, you also have no timing restrictions. So you can invest at any time. You can dollar cost average. You can put it into multiple investment classes. You can put it into debt. I think real estate price has been really attractive these days. We
Yeah.
have clients sold a $13 million asset, put a lot of it into Bitcoin, and that had a big run up. So the cool thing is you can have flexibility with. So that's the main difference between the deferred sales trust and the 1031 exchange.
That's awesome. Give us an example. You just mentioned your one client. Give us an example of the deferred sales trust in action.
Yeah, so I'll just talk about a recent deal. We just did an $8 million exit for a business owner out of Massachusetts. They bought a automotive business. They had about 100,000 of revenue when they bought it, and then they made it into multi-million dollars of revenue. And they sold a portion of it for about 8 million. They would have paid about 35% of the gain in tax. And not
Big
only
tax bill.
that, yeah, big tax, but not only just that piece of it, they deferred all 8 million into the trust. And this is probably the best kept secret, Chris, that most people miss. Most people think, oh, it's just 20 or 30 or 40%, which is substantial. That's the first ROI we get to defer. But then as we get to shelter the interest on the 8 million for a period of time. So this is known as income tax deferral, which is probably even more powerful, especially if you live in a high tax state like a Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, California,
Yeah.
Illinois, or really
Illinois.
anywhere you have a high income. And so watch this math,
Yeah.
right? On 8 million, I think we wrote the note at like 10% on this one. And so that's 800,000 per year. Well, he's staying on for at least 2 to 3 years on this business. So meaning
Yeah.
he's sold a portion of it, but he's also working. They're paying him a salary. So he doesn't
Right.
necessarily need the income right now. And so what we're doing is we're delaying the income for at least 2 years. And so that first 800,000 is delayed. It means there's no income tax. The capital
Yeah.
gains tax is deferred. That's multiple millions. And then they're doing that again for year two. And then when he retires from I think this career, this job,
Yeah.
this business he sold, then he can turn it on in year three. So when his active income goes down, and so we call this tax engineering. And so that's a
Yeah.
super really cool way that we look at this. And the last one is if you're an entrepreneur, you can partner with the trust, and he'll probably start a business or buy real estate, and he can be actively running that deal. And so you're not like tied to be a passive investor. You can be an active entrepreneur, which is what you and me, I imagine a number of your listeners, they want to be able to be running their own deals. And the deferred sales is amazing for that because it gives you a new depreciation schedule when you buy the new asset. You can get about 80% of it the way we structure it. And then you can get additional upside. And the cool thing is hopefully you're buying low, right? You sold high, you diversified, you waited around for the deals. Sometimes it takes a couple of years for this real estate market to shift and sellers to come to grips with what the prices are. And then you buy at a discount. That's the point. All tax deferred. And this is why we're so dedicated to what we're doing, because it's literally the Netflix of the old Blockbuster way of doing things.
Netflix versus the Blockbuster. Yeah.
We feel like we're the Netflix and Blockbuster the old way. And you can go to get a movie on a Friday night and return it 3 days later, and maybe it's the DVD scratched and doesn't work or whatever, right? There's a way to
DVD. When you said Blockbuster, I was thinking VHS, man.
VHS.
I'll never forget picking those out at the store. That's a great way. That's a great way to put it. And what I hear in all this, Brett, is you maintain flexibility and control of your choices, which are out there. Especially
100%. You give up some controls because there's a third party unrelated trustee. That's our role. Right? So we have to say yes to the investments, right? We're part of the team now. Like we're very intimately together. But at the same time, if you've ever done a 1031, Chris, you gave up control.
I have.
For 45 to 180. And if you ever work with the broker, you probably give up control for some decisions too, like negotiating some stuff. So we've become an asset to the team. We're really experts at real estate investment advising, and which we happen to use a really amazing tool to amplify our services, right? Yeah. But we also work with people like you, Chris. Like we bring in great groups to invest with and diversify. Like have all the answers. No, we have all the expertise. We love mobile home park, industrial, multifamily. We love multifamily debt. We also like putting in, like had a client, $17 million business sale in Sacramento, billboard business, real estate business. And we put it into NVIDIA stock 2.5 years ago, a lot of it. Oh. And guess where that stock went? It went really high. This is the point. Sell high, invest, diversify, and then buy real estate when it finally, kind of hits bottom.
Yeah. No, I like that because if you look at the way the ultra wealthy do it, they invest in all these things. They've got, quarter in real estate, quarter in stock market, quarter in debt, fixed income, these sorts of things. And, but the big thing that the wealthy do is they have proper legal entities set up so that they can optimize their tax strategy, which is what you're helping doing. And the other thing that the ultra wealthy do, you learn about the Rockefellers versus, I always use the example of the Vanderbilts here in Asheville. The Vanderbilts, Cornelius is one of the richest people in the country, at one point. And now his great-grandchildren, there wasn't a millionaire among them when they met just a couple, 10 or 20 years ago here. Anderson Cooper is one of those heirs. So they didn't learn the lessons. They didn't have the proper structure set up. Brett, you're a family man. Going from family to mission, like how do you work with people, or how do you help people figure out their family mission? Because that's a big thing, that we've done with our family is helped our boys kind of understand that. I know you just got back from a really great trip in Uganda, I believe it was, doing some great work over there. We're wrapping up some stuff with our nonprofit here in Asheville due to Helene. It's a big thing. Walk us through, family and mission.
Absolutely. It's interesting, as I studied this, just the last 6 months and dove in with Bill Hyatt and David Green with Hobby Lobby. The first thing I think is just awareness, like having the awareness that what we're doing is multi-generational, right? I think too often American cultures, we think the next 5 years, 10 years or to retirement or just to our kids. And it shrinks the vision down to a smaller box, right? But when you think multi-generational, the multi-generational impact, this awareness of that is important to understand. Second, if you are a Christian, you read the Bible and you believe in the Bible, the Bible actually says this, it's multi-generational, right? And so you actually start seeing that and understand that concept. The next thing that has to do with, core values. Like we all have typically core values for our businesses or for our real estate companies, or if you work for somebody, they have core values. And so
Yeah.
the concept of that, we understand that. So why not
Yeah.
apply that same thing to our families, right? And so
Yes.
just actually sitting down and saying, what do we believe? What is important to us, and what
Yeah.
are some things that can make sure that we're staying on track for what we're called to do and who we're called to be. And so just having a few core values, set up, four or five. And the next thing would have like mission statement for your family and a
Yes.
vision statement for your family. These things actually don't take too long to put into place. In
Yeah.
fact, I spent about a day and a half with my wife at a workshop with Bill High, working through the
Yeah.
material, thinking it through, praying about it. And then that simple framework there, you take it and you start to actually teach the kids, right? And you
Yeah.
share it with each other. And again, it becomes like a compass to help you point you back into the
Yeah.
right direction. And you start talking about it, rewarding and celebrating as your family's doing this. You have what's called a family board meeting, or just
Yeah.
basically a weekly
Yeah.
family meeting about these things. Just actually common sense stuff, but it can
Yeah.
just pay huge dividends in a world that really time is short, right? It's
Yeah.
collapsing on us, especially with AI and technology and the speed of life, that we've got
Yeah.
to be ultra intentional about these things
Yeah.
before the kids are out of the house, especially if you have massive amount of
Yes.
wealth, because the stewardship here is really on passing down the relational, the emotional, the financial intelligence, the spiritual legacy, right? The wealth part of it is important too. That's a part of it. The financial wealth part of it, and building wealth,
Yeah.
entrepreneurial spirit, those all encapsulate the wealth, right? Not
Yeah.
just taxes and cash
Yes.
flow and asset values, right? That's
Yeah.
that's just one piece
Those are
of
the
your
mechanics of it.
pie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love that. We've implemented our family board meeting. Our boys are 13 and 15. I only have two. Brett, remind me again, do you have four or five kids? Five.
Five.
I was like, I love it. I love it. I feel like all my friends, I feel like I haven't met the buy-in yet with the kids. I was like, sweetie, we gotta, up at a couple kids here and do this. But no, it's been a big thing for us, teaching our core family values and bringing back lessons as my boys are in school and things happen and you teach them life lessons. And then I bring it back and say, hey, remember when we talked about this? And if if you followed this, then this wouldn't happen. And this is how you act as a teammate, as a classmate, as a leader in your community at school and those sorts of things. Very important. And I think the challenge today, Brett, is that the financial world. I mean, let's give an example. I have this conversation with financial advisors all the time, like talking about something as simple as life insurance. Financial advisor will say, "Oh, you don't need permanent life insurance. You don't need whole life insurance. Like term is just fine because you're not going to need life insurance when you're 65 and you have enough assets." I said, "So let me get this right. Your plan is for your client to build up enough assets, cancel their life insurance essentially, and then spend down their assets until they die." And they're like, "Yeah, that's a very short-lived type of scenario." And you can do both. Like Warren Buffett has built all this wealth. He gives some of it to his children. He gives a lot of it away. He teaches them those values. But I think that's a very, I don't know if selfish is the right way, but it's a very short-sighted way that gives up a lot of the utility of the wealth that we built. And if we just restructure things, we can have, as you said in the beginning, so much more of an impact, not only during our lives, but during the lives of our future generations.
Yeah, I could agree with you more. What we refer to this as
Yeah.
stewardship over ownership mindset, right? Um,
Stewardship over ownership. I'm writing
yeah.
that down. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we have a podcast called Build It to Billions, and that's the whole thesis is
Yeah.
is, is how to have a stewardship over ownership mindset and practice billionaire principles. And this idea here back to multi-generational and structuring and
Yeah.
stewarding the wealth that
Yeah.
we've been blessed with, that we've worked hard for, all of these things.
Yeah.
And so ownership taken in the wrong way tends to lead to more of an entitlement type of mentality. And it's more
Yeah.
about me, how quickly can I get
Yeah.
to retirement and how quickly can I just live off of that? And it kind of
Yeah.
stops there. You're right. Kind of just spend it till it's gone.
Yeah.
Stewardship, I believe, practiced in the right way leads to a gratitude, right? Like, wow, how
Yes.
blessed am I to be able to create and preserve wealth and be a
Yeah.
blessing for most vulnerable people, a blessing for my family, a blessing for the community, a blessing for multiple generations, right?
Yeah.
And so when we take that mindset, stewardship over ownership, it's a privilege to look at and structure. And I think of it like in a Rubik's cube, and
Yeah.
each cube shows up and it's different colors on different sides,
Yeah.
and you got to figure out, hey, what sides do you want, what colors on, and how clear do you want it, and then
Yeah.
what team can help you move that cube in a way which delivers that freedom, that impact, that legacy. But it definitely starts with
Yeah.
stewardship or ownership. And the other thing too is too many people I think focus on not unlocking truly passive income. And I think this is
Mm.
really big,
Yeah.
Chris, right? And in fact, I'm going through this right now. I've been in the industry really my whole life, building houses with my parents from the Bay Area. And then
Yeah.
Marcus and Millichap selling multifamily properties before the crash. The crash
Yeah.
happens,
Mm.
everything hits the fan, and we learn about the Deferred Sales Trust, and we help people with that. But what I found with all of this, and after about $500 million of sales of real estate transactions and businesses with the DST and all of this, what I found is that most don't have a laser focus on their what we call a TPI number, their truly passive income number.
Mm-hmm.
And let me define this for you so that everyone is
Yes,
really clear on
please.
this.
Yeah.
It's called No Shoes, No Shirt, No Problem. I want you to keep about Kenny Chesney with a guitar on the beat with his hat, his glasses on, no shirt on, no shoes, no shirt, no problem. And he's got the sand and he's playing his guitar. And
Yeah.
he just knows every month his royalty checks are showing up from his summertime songs, right? His summertime
Yeah.
blues, and it's just showing up passively. He no longer has to play another concert, no longer has to sell another record. He knows that every month he has a certainty of conviction that money is showing up and it's going to be able to pay for his lifestyle, his expenses. But he doesn't stop there, because once he unlocks truly passive income, he can unlock maximum impact, okay? Even multiple
Yeah.
impact. But too often I think where we get it wrong, some of the mistakes we make is we look for too many sources of income too quickly. So we get diluted focus, diluted results. Okay. We look for too much. We don't take the gains when we should, right? Like we just hold on to Bitcoin, we hold on to the real estate, we hold on to the business, and it just keeps going. And we settle for, minimal cash flows or ROEs of 3 to 5% on equity.
ROE. Yeah.
Yeah.
So keep going and then we'll come back to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so instead of like saying like, what do we want? Well, I can tell you after, in my opinion, what we want truly passive income, meaning no shoes, no shirt, no problem, meaning what? 10, 20, 30, 40,000 a month, whatever it is for you and your family and your lifestyle, like figuring out a laser, what is that number? And then reverse engineering and putting all of your time and your energy into that one thing. Yeah. Right? Like build the truly passive income machine. And by that, I mean, don't be the person who has to own all the real estate or own all the businesses. That's your active income. That's not truly passive. Find a place where it can pay you double-digit returns, consistent, durable cash flow, and it's going to pay you what you need per month. So I can tell you ours. Ours is about a 30,000 per month number. Okay. Yeah. So we set a goal for 2 years, and we have found, and we work with some private debt groups that are paying, 16 to 18% type of returns. And after vetting and looking through all this, we put like a laser, and we're going, okay, if we only put 500 in every year for the next 2 years, basically, that'll be 2 million. That'll basically, it pays about quarterly, but that'll basically pay about 30,000 per month, 25 to 30,000 per month. And I said, if all we did was just that, focus like a laser and take all the other blinds off, everything else that can be a distraction, that kind of here and there. And once that hits, that's the big domino that opens up the floodgates for, I think, freedom, flexibility, peace of mind. And then the Kenny Chesney, I'm gonna get my guitar. And in fact, I'm gonna get my guitar, I'm gonna have a hat, my glasses on, and the day that it happens, I'm gonna play. Maybe I'll come back on the
there you go. Yeah, next time I want you in there with your guitar.
But I'll explain real fast. A lot of people are stuck in their businesses, their real estate, and they have massive gains, but they haven't unlocked it because of the capital gains tax. And so we solve that, and we accelerate this truly passive income opportunity. I'll give you a quick story. Warren and Catherine, $2.5 million sale in Sacramento. The property just about free and clear. Their NOI was about 120,000. We showed this concept to them where we can unlock 190,000, but it was truly passive
Yep.
versus the active ownership of real estate and the liability. So we got them out of, he had a little bit of debt, so we got them out of debt. We got them diversified. We increased their cash on cash by 60+%. They were truly passive. The biggest part is they could spend time with their twin daughters,
Oh,
which
yeah.
was, they were 10 years old and they didn't want to waste the time working. They can be
Yeah.
spending time with their kids right now, at least working as much as they wanted to, right? And that's the point, right? And when the kids are 18, they can go back and do more work, but
Right.
that's where you got to get crystal clear on your family mission, vision, and values, so that it's so simple to be like, yep, sell the thing, defer the tax, unlock truly passive income. Man, does it compound the impact for your family?
I love that. And that's one of the big things that ROE, that return on equity, that I noticed when I bought my first property in 1999, 21 years old, in college. I watched my properties increase in value. And what I realized was on my equity, I was getting like 7%. After tax, it was 4%. It was right in the middle of that 3 to 5% you mentioned, Brett. And by selling those, moving that money into more passive investments, multifamily in our case, this was over 10 years ago, it allowed us to do those things. That was the first big domino for us. And I love that example. Let's wrap up with how old are your kids, Brett? What are the ranges?
Yeah, the youngest is 14. We have 4 daughters and we have a
Yeah.
boy, and he
Yeah.
is 6. So between 6 and
Yeah.
14.
6 and 14. So when would you recommend? We've been trying to talk to our kids. We've even on our website, you can go to nextlevelincome.com/kids. We got 5 tips on how to teach your kids how to be money pros. So if you haven't seen that yet, check it out at nextlevelincome.com/kids. But we started talking about with our kids real early, different concepts about money, paying them a salary. That's their allowance, right? They get $1 a day, but then they work for our businesses. What are some tips that you have for our listeners today to one, what age to start teaching your kids about this, and just some tools that they can use to start teaching their families about mission, vision, and values?
Yeah, okay. So mission, vision, values today, right? So
Yeah.
as soon as you can, right? Like
Yeah.
literally, like if I could say the urgency of this is now,
Yeah.
like time
Yes.
is collapsing on us. The time that we have with our children before, 85% of the habits the kids form is before the age of 16. Okay. So like the habits, the detail,
Yeah.
the building in and speaking life into them is every single day, right? And so I would say start now. Now, are the younger ones that are 6 and 9, are they as focused as the older ones? No, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Do they still pick up more than you would expect? They absolutely do, right?
Yeah,
And in fact,
absolutely.
will they know it better? Yeah, they will, because they'll have more years with it, right? We just
Yes.
started this just 6, 7, 8 months ago. So I would say that. The second thing I would say is if you're a Christian and believer, and or wherever you're at, like pray with your kids and speak life into them as you feel their strengths and their gifts that they've been given, right? And so I have a series of questions that I ask my kids. I try to ask them every day, a series of questions that get them thinking about this, and they answer it, and that becomes ingrained into their hearts, into their minds. So that's what I would say are some of the tips that I would encourage people for the family mission, vision, values.
I love it. And Brett, I love having you back on. You are teaching these things in your own family. You're teaching these things with your client. You're helping make an impact all over the world. I know you are. I know some of the partners that you work with as well. They're doing tremendous things. I have tremendous amount of gratitude for a lot of that stuff that's out there. It's personally impacted our community here with some of our mutual friends that we were talking about before the show. If our listeners want to get to know more about you, your business, maybe they say, "Hey, I'm looking to sell a business." What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you're looking to sell a business or Bitcoin or real estate and you have at least $1 million net proceeds, you want to go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com right now to book a one-on-one time with myself or one of my team members. You can also check out the book, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan, on Amazon. We have Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. We have Tony Robbins, CPA, in the book. We have a lot of really smart, cool people in there. And then I have some chapters on my journey to that. And then if you want to just connect with me on social media and check out our best 1031 exit plan that we also just released, you can go to brettswarts.com. That's BRETTSWARTS.com to connect with me there.
Awesome. And I'm going to put your website here in the show notes. And just for you listeners, if you go to that, you can get access to everything that Brett mentioned. That's the easiest way, at brettswarts.com. It's here. It's in the show notes. It's in the show title. And it's right there on your screen on the cover of Brett's book. Brett, thank you so much for joining us today. Always enjoy catching up with you, my friend. You're looking great.
Thanks, Chris.
Hey, Chris here again. I hope you found this episode valuable. Now, I have one more thing to gift you. We have a page for my coaching clients where you can get a free copy of my book, as well as much more from previous guests on the show. Just check out nextlevelincome.com/coaching to get a free copy of my book, audiobook, and much more. I'll send you a copy of my book and cover all the shipping costs as a thank you for listening to the podcast. Also, please like, share, and take just 90 seconds to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts.